Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Giant Pod with me, your host, Andy Wrintmore. This week, I am chatting to the formidable Jess Hellens. Jess has a history in PR, marketing. She's worked within the music industry. She's worked with video games. She's started her own co-working space called Wild Coworking. She's a bloody saint. I love Jess, and we have a really good chat. Check it out on The Giant Pod.
Is this meant to be professional?
We're going to try. We're going to
try and be professional.
Try and be professional.
Right. Have we started now?
Yeah.
Oh, right. We've already started.
Well, usually what I like to do is I like to go down and get my guests because they don't always have the privilege of being able to get into the building.
Into the building
right?
like me.
And Harry will we'll make this thing record.
Yeah.
And so when we come in, we get everything. Right? So you sit, you get the preamble, you get the housekeeping, you get the everything. And then what we do is we find a nice sweet spot to fade in to the pod.
I bet Harry's already been recording before I even noticed.
Yeah, absolutely. But you sort of, I felt a bit ambushed. You just sort of arrived.
That's how I do though, isn't it?
You're like, all right.
That's what I do. I'm here, everyone. And I'm surprised you didn't hear me before I came into the room, to be honest.
No, and I couldn't. You come in and you heard me going something about, great content.
I didn't even hear you.
We were having some sort of business. I can't remember what it was now.
Some business chat.
It was a businessy chat. It was a content related chat, and I can hear myself saying this more and more often now as I go down this sort of this podcast rabbit hole of like, yeah, good content that.
Oh, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now.
Yeah. Hear me now.
Hear me now.
Content chat. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you start something new, innit?
Yeah.
Why did you start this podcast?
Well, because I used to do radio and I really enjoyed it.
Radio's great, isn't it?
It is so fun. And I stopped doing it because Thick Ones started getting
famous.
Not famous. Not at the time. It wasn't like famous. It's not even really famous now. But like, we were getting somewhere. So the effort we were put in, we were getting out.
Yeah.
And I was putting a lot of effort into radio and getting nothing out of it in terms of like progression. And something had to give. And so I picked what was working at the time. But that didn't mean that I hated radio.
No.
It just meant that I was putting a lot of effort into something that seemed to be spinning its wheels.
Yeah.
And but then I think about it all the time.
Yeah.
And so Harry came to me and said, look, I've got this master's degree. I've spent all this money on this gear.
Quite a lot of money.
Right, a lot of money on this gear. And he said, I want to start producing podcasts.
Great.
And I want to do a podcast with you. And I said, you know what? I'm smart enough to know when a bloody door opens. You got to go through it, Jess Hellens.
Bloody great big door for you.
Because I thought to myself, I'll do a podcast somewhere in the future.
Yeah.
But there's no way I would have the money to spend on this stuff or make it sound as good as Harry does.
No.
So I wasn't sure if I'd have the time and everything. But like most things in life, if you want to do it,
just get on and do it.
You make the time, don't you?
Yeah, that's what I do.
We found a lot of time recently for
Have
this.
you? Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you actually enjoy something, you're like, oh, I seem to be doing it all the time.
Squeezing every hour.
Yeah. It's great that you love it, though.
I'm liking it a lot.
I like it. I like being on the radio.
Yes.
I've never done it. I think this... Hold up. I think this might be my first podcast.
Hell yeah.
You popped my podcast cherry.
Yeah.
Weird. I made it weird, didn't I?
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow. It would have been weird if
Is this like a family show? Am I allowed to?
No, say whatever you want.
Whoa. Don't.
I'll reserve the C-bomb for when it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah,
when it's say.
When you
to
need
avoid
it.
being crass. But you can basically say what you want. We've got edit control as well. So if you put your foot in your mouth,
I'll tell you. I'll be like, cut.
You just if you're led in bed tonight and you go, oh no, I said that. Just chuck me a little message on old Instagram DMs.
Why are you talking to me like I'm a grandma?
I don't know.
No, if you pop onto your Instagrams and if you swipe left, you can find the
Swipe left. That's Tinder.
No, you swipe left.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no. Now I'm
you're
teaching
right.
you.
No, you're right. Yeah, I go about it like an old man. I go proper like to the little thing, and I don't do any of that. I rarely do the swipey stuff on there. I go to the little paper aeroplane thing.
You are mental.
I know.
Can't even imagine what it looks like. Oh, you mean like you click that?
Yeah, I click that.
That is weird.
Is it?
Yeah, I just do that. Look at that. Swipey.
Yeah, very efficient.
That is. Well, this is top quality content.
Yeah.
This is what you were after.
Content.
Wasn't it?
We're all about content here at the Giant Pod.
What does content mean to you?
Giant,
hang on. I didn't even know the title of the podcast.
So welcome to the Giant Pod, Jess, with Andy Wrintmore.
You got a jingle yet?
Let's not forget the with Andy Wrintmore bit.
Sorry.
On it.
Interrupted. Before the important bit.
That's fine. Just mute her at that bit.
Cut.
So, yeah, welcome to the Giant Pod. Sorry, I thought I'd mentioned it to you.
No. Giant. Why? Oh, that's weird. Why is it called Giant Podcast, Andy?
Maybe, Jess, it's because I'm a bloody giant.
You're a bloody giant man.
I'm a giant man, and we've also sort of, between us, theorised that this might be some kind of metaphorical pod.
Because you're talking to giants within the industries,
yeah.
a.k.a.
I hadn't thought of that angle, but
there you go.
It's applicable here.
Correct, Armando.
I was going to say, Jess, if you you won't put your foot in your mouth, will you? Because you're a PR agent and you understand.
Oh, yeah.
You understand all that, don't you?
Yeah.
How did we get started? Because so there's a part of this that I haven't really told you about because I know that you'd be great anyway. So I've just sort of invited you here. Instead of doing a podcast, come on it. I've given you anything, haven't
Nothing.
I really?
I didn't even think about what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah,
which is often quite dangerous. But that's how I like to do it. I like to wing it, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I do on the radio.
I think you can wing it. You keep mentioning radio.
Wow. I like the radio. Sometimes I'm on it. If you were asking.
Shout out BBC Somerset.
If you must.
I did hear you on there the other day. You were picking out news articles, weren't you? That and you were doing your best little dissection, I guess.
I mean, you say best dissection. Did you actually listen to it? Because it's often
I thought it was all right.
Absolute nonsense.
It wasn't particularly profound.
No, that's why they get me on there, I think.
But you were entertained.
Hey, guess whose best biscuit got voted this week? And last time I picked a story about a man that reviewed benches.
Yes. They loved that.
What a time to be alive.
It's great breakfast show material.
Anyway,
what was the bench
about?
guy about? I did see something about that briefly online. So there's a fella that's gone around and he's reviewing benches.
I've got this thing. I love newspaper headlines that have got ridiculous titles.
Right.
And me and my dad actually have a good laugh. There's a few kind of roundups that you can find and they're in books and stuff, but this one about the park bench has really got me. This guy just goes around the southwest and across the UK reviewing the benches, takes a photo of them, puts them on his Instagram, rates them out of five out of 5. Or he hasn't got I think it's out of 10. He hasn't got a perfect score yet.
Oh, he's one of those, is he?
Yeah, but he's only about 24, and I'm like, dude, like, what's happened?
So how's he finding them? Is he getting tip-offs of what's a good bench?
I can find it and read. I'm not. Do you know what? If you want to listen to it, you can listen to it on BBC Radio Somerset on the BBC Sounds app. No, I'm making it sound like I'm on the radio regularly. It's just
you're on there fairly regularly.
No, not
aren't
really.
You?
Once a month.
That's pretty good.
Every couple of weeks. Whatever.
I've only been on BBC Somerset once.
That surprises me. But you're on Six Music quite a lot, aren't you?
Oh, thank you, Jess.
Clang. There you go. You're welcome.
And it was fun. Did you hear it when I was on there? I don't think you did.
Yeah.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
And they asked me questions. I went, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
As the deputy mayor, I was asked questions. I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't been up there yet.
Yeah.
But it looks great from the pictures I've seen.
I listened to it and I have my PR head on. And
Right.
I was like, he needed to talk to me before he did that interview. So it's like someone's just woken him up and said, can you go on the radio and talk about...
It's essentially what happened.
Yeah, I thought so. You're obviously great, as Deputy Mayor of Deputy Mayor of Frome. Fromage. But I could tell. Maybe it's because I know you.
Yeah.
But I think my favourite was like, they've like sprayed picnic blankets or something on the grass. And they were like, oh yeah. People use it. Don't know. I haven't been up there yet.
My dad just say, I can't. My dad was like, I liked it. I thought it was good, but there was a couple of moments where I thought maybe you could have lied.
Yes, Dad. Dad is a PR expert. Yeah.
And I said, I know, but that's not really
you,
on my brand.
No.
It's not really my thing.
Oh, you say brand, but I don't think you're capable of
no, I'm not
spinning it.
I'm not that cynical, but that's not. I guess what I mean by brand is that's not very me.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean? I
feel
don't
like
really
if someone
like
asked
lying.
you to lie, you'd be like,
no,
incapable.
I don't want it. But the thing is, that's the thing. I feel that's what makes me different, and always would have made me different in the local political realm, is that some people are going to come here and play the game. And there's a certain
I just wish everyone could have seen that.
It's a bit
Then.
House of Cards, isn't it? But like
played the game.
Played the game. But I don't know. I think people are just a bit sick of people playing the game, aren't they?
I was thinking about that on the way over, actually, because I was thinking about local politics and actually just generally the government at the moment, because 2020 is one of the weirdest years we've ever experienced, and the government just being the government, which we would expect the Tories to be, but we voted them. Me and you didn't vote them in. A lot of people voted them in. And I was thinking about how politics is essentially like a big communications, and I'm talking communications as in like PR and marketing. They have to convince a lot of people to buy into them. Yeah. And so there's a lot of spin, as we know, and it works on a lot of people. And actually that's going into the virtual world now, as opposed to just people kind of talking to the public. We're being manipulated through social media a lot.
It's like we used to need really good public speakers and charismatic people to sell these ideas. Now you don't necessarily need someone who's got an incredible skill at talking to a room. Yeah. It's all about the social media influence.
Yeah, and I think I think politics sometimes unfortunately doesn't attract the right people. Froome's lucky to have you as a deputy mayor and as a before as a councillor, because you wanted to make a difference. But I think a lot of politicians go into politics because they think that they can make a difference, but they don't really understand what that is, or like they're quite narcissistic, so then we'll think just about their own little bubble, and that's what we're seeing with the Tories. But then I don't think that politicians are paid or have a kind of lifestyle that people that run large corporations that are really good at strategy and really good at motivating people and really know how to lead. They don't want anything to do with politics. It's boring. It's like a boys' club. So then you're stuck with like, okay, we've got to reinvent the wheel, but how are we going to start that?
Is this because if you go and you become a CEO, say, of a company or a position of some sort of equivalence, you get paid way more and you get hated by way less people than if you go down the political route?
Possibly.
So there's almost no real incentive for them to go into politics and function at the highest capacity. Yeah. So are you saying that if the country was run by more people that are a bit more like that?
Not necessarily. I think like because of what I do every day is I'm trying to change the business landscape through empowering women and encouraging people to come together to collaborate and work together and make people realise how the business landscape can be. And a lot of people have said to me, actually, why don't you go into politics or local government? And we've actually had a brief chat about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it's about representation as well. And this is like, we can get onto that in a minute, but I don't see myself in government. And there's parts of me that's like, I could infiltrate from the inside out, but man alive, that would take me forever. And do I have the energy, or do I actually want to create my own community and make change from outside and affect that change through people, through, groups of women?
Yeah.
Yes, I'd much prefer that.
I think you would be great in the local political realm. I definitely did not see myself either as anything like this. And the personal growth, the change of the person I used to be to the person I am now, and but just over a year, it's been really drastic. And that's just because of like responsibility, I think, and some shedding of naivety. I don't think I would be able to function in a different political environment. So I think a local town-based council like the independent scene here in Frome is great for me. I think you would also do really well there as well. I mean, I guess you'd probably think of things as being far more wing clipping and...
yeah, a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really not like that. But yeah, we did have a chat.
Yeah, not here.
No, but somewhere else. And then you went and moved to Bristol, didn't you? So that sort of idea went out the window. But I really do think that you would be a really good town councillor, and I think that you'd be a fantastic mayoress as well one day.
Whoa, that's big.
Yeah, well,
Oh, I can imagine the chains on me.
Yeah.
Just wander around. Why haven't you got them on now?
Well, because I'm not, on an official...
Do you have to get them out of a safe?
No, nothing. Yeah, it's not that rock and roll, really. They're literally in a little jewelry. My deputy mayor medallion thing is in my jewelry box thing at home with my granddad's watch, another watch that doesn't work, an old passport picture of me, and just general crap. Basically, it's in there.
Great, you're looking after it really well then.
Well, I am, and the fact that because of COVID, I'm not actually using it at all, so it's getting no wear and tear ever.
Oh,
Other than the odd photo shoot. But I did have Tom McEwen, who was on the show previously, who's a goldsmith. He's done stuff for like the Queen and and Ewan McGregor and things like that. He was going to make me a new chain for it,
right? Because
what's on it at the moment is this little like ribbon type thing. It's almost like a medal, and it stinks.
Does it?
Yeah, it stinks like an amalgamation of like 5 to 10 ex-mayor, deputy mayors' colognes and perfumes and stuff. It's just got a very strange smell to it.
Does it smell a bit like a museum?
No, not really. It's very floral. It's quite a strong... Yeah, because it's definitely perfumes and stuff. Right. But it's just like I said, it's every time they've put it on for something, they've dashed themselves with whatever.
And you don't really wear perfume, do you?
Well, I wear a little bit of, cologne.
Cologne? On special occasions?
Yeah, I got a little bit on now.
Have you?
Yeah.
Can't smell it.
Yeah, you're not close enough to me. It's Calvin Klein.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so I'd like a chain really, because I don't feel that the ribbon thing aesthetically really lends itself to every piece of clothing I have.
So what are you going to do? Melt down a load of gold and...
Well, he said to get him three of the finest bottles of white wine I could afford for him, and he'll do it for nothing.
Shut the front door.
Yeah. I still haven't got it though.
You are one of those people that gets people to... Like, I've driven from Bristol for this tonight. You're welcome, by the way. So it's worth it, isn't it?
And I appreciate the effort.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, what were you going to tell me before we got onto politics, which we said we weren't going to talk about? You said that you do a section of the podcast that you haven't told me about. No, I
don't know what to talk about.
Are you about to surprise me with something?
No. A section of the podcast I didn't tell you about.
You said you didn't prepare me. There's something that you need to tell me.
Oh, I just meant that I didn't really give you any overall for the podcast. So essentially, this podcast is slightly biographical at times. I want to talk with impressive, extraordinary, interesting people, right?
Okay.
I want to talk to people who've lived, who've done things,
Yeah.
who've doing interesting things, people with drive, people with passion, anyone who's had an interesting ride, basically.
Okay.
But that with that intrinsically is a slightly biographical nature to it, because the listener needs to kind of know what you do and how you got there, and that's what I'm fascinated, because I know you.
Yeah.
But there are some people that will come on here who I don't know very intimately, and I want to know about their life and why they went to this college and university and why they chose this particular path and what doors, life stories. They're fascinating. The only books I read are autobiographical, so it just sort of makes sense. Well, I like a Batman graphic novel.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. But the only books, like proper books, literary stuff I read, I almost said literacy. The only literary stuff I read is basically autobiographical. So it kind of makes sense that a lot of my podcast stuff is just going to be sort of nosy.
Yeah, well, ask me what you like. What do you want to know?
Well,
where should we start?
I feel like we've hit a reset button.
Well, now I know what I'm meant to be talking about rather than absolute nonsense. I can give you the content
I don't think any of that was
need.
nonsense. I thought that was all right.
I can't even remember what we spoke about. I'm coming down off the sugar high
you
now.
mentioned the Wild Coworking space, so it probably makes sense to explain what that is.
Yeah, well, I suppose and
how you got there. So how did you start your professional? What was it? Give me a moment when you went, you know what, I want to work in PR and marketing. And I want to be this, inspirational, force of nature, independent woman.
From about the age of 3. No, I think I've always, in all seriousness, I do think I've always had a kind of stubbornness about me that I'm like, no, I can do it. And that's kind of seen me through. But in terms of PR and marketing, I went to uni and did art and visual culture, and I realised I didn't want to be an artist and thought, I'd like to represent artists. And then I just worked my arse off, like for years. I started at Bristol Vic. I did work experience at galleries. I did massive campaigns at Bristol Vic, and then went to agencies and Essex Great Britain, and I worked with like Ali Pally and Jamie Oliver and big celebs at Bristol Vic. So I've seen.
So tell me about the Old Vic. What is the Old Vic?
It's the theatre in Bristol.
Right.
And when I first started, it had just come out of being completely dark for about a year because they'd lost all their money. And we were on the track to kind of reopening the theatre, and it looks totally different now because they've completely redone the whole theatre. Well, I guess, the theatre. So there's a Theatre Royal in the studio, and the whole kind of complex of the theatre now looks completely different to when I first started. But that was an incredible time that like kickstarted my career. I did photo shoots with Daniel Day-Lewis, and
tell me about that.
Oh, he's
because I know you're a big fan. Every time I mention him in one of my Instagram stories or something.
No, come off. You chatting about Daniel Day-Lewis too often then.
No, well, no, okay, all right, okay. I put him in my story.
I said maybe once
recently, and I thought, I bet Jess is going to pop up and tell me about the time she did a photo shoot. There you were. I love Daniel. Daniel loves me. He said this about me once.
Well, there you go then. What
did he say?
I'm not going to tell you now. Sorry, listeners. You'll have to find out another day. You probably will. You probably overhear me telling someone else.
So Daniel was a nice boy.
He's a nice man. He's got beautiful blue eyes, and he's a charming man.
Yes.
That's all you need to know.
All right.
But that kind of kickstarted everything for me, and look at that. I spilt water all over me. Of course I have.
I was going to point it out that you'd sort of spilt water on your top, but I didn't want to put you off your stroke.
Absolutely everywhere. It's no surprise. It's pretty standard. I just kind of, I loved it. And I loved PR because I loved dealing with the media. But the way that PR has changed now, it is so different to how I started and kind of carried on my career. When I was at SS Great Britain, I used to work with like TV a lot, and I loved that, like being on the kind of site with TV crews and telling them about I love museums. Like, I love museums. I really miss museums.
What was it about them that you loved so
I
much?
love the smell. I love the smell of a museum. I love the intimacy. I love that you can find quiet corners where nobody else is and just sit in a place where, like, surrounded by old stuff. It's surrounded by history and just, I don't know, there's something really nostalgic about it. I wrote my whole dissertation on it. I won't go into that now. It's boring. But yeah, so that kind of like cemented my PR and marketing stuff career. And then I moved to Brighton for a bit and worked in music education and music. So for BIM globally. So worked in Berlin and
BIM is the British Institute of Modern...
British and Irish Modern Music... British and Irish Institute of Modern Music.
Right.
But it doesn't really work with the acronym, but... yeah, so that kind of that was okay, and then I started working for ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music.
That's BIM's sort of main competitor.
Yeah, I
isn't
got
it,
poached by them,
right?
And then I kind of worked out of Metropolis Studios as well, so I had a real insight into music industry.
Where is Metropolis? In London?
In London, yeah. Right. Saw Elton John there once, going in to record.
Is that where Primal Scream recorded?
I don't know. Queen did a lot of recording there. It's like Freddie Mercury's piano's there, and they've recorded videos and stuff. So being in that building was amazing. But the music industry, I don't need to tell you, but although it's very different, you being a man and me being a woman, although we're both very privileged because we're both white, but geez, I never want to work in music ever again. It changed my opinion of the industry massively. I knew it was tough, but even from my point of view, from like working in music education and in marketing, it broke me, honestly. And I've never experienced so much misogyny than I had in those that small amount of time working in that industry. And sexual harassment, and it was horrific. So I think that is an industry that needs breaking down and building again, because I think it's kind of on its way, but because the world has changed so much, it's still got execs that are used to having a huge budget that now have no budget. They're used to having a certain lifestyle. They're used to being adored like music gods and having power, in inverted commas. And it's just not like that anymore. So then working in education, you see all these kind of really hopeful young musicians that are really talented, some of them really not, but the university wants them to pay their tuition fees, so they tell them they're great, which I think is awful. Yeah. And then they just get chewed up and spat out. And it's not even about being strong. It's about navigating this weird world. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of independent artists now, because it's like, well, I don't need that. I can do it myself. Yeah. So anyway, this is a long and winding story to where I got to. This is great. But at the end of 2016, I was living in Brighton working at ACM, and I was done. I got really poorly. I didn't really have a life. I was head of marketing, and I was picked up by a driver in this van with Wi-Fi, so I could work in this like Mercedes. From the outside, it looked really glamorous. Like, I'd be picked up by this driver, and with the team, and we'd sit in this Mercedes with like fridge in the armrest and screens and Wi-Fi. But I was so miserable. It was awful. I was having panic attacks. It was just not okay. And I think at that point I was like, okay, what do I need to do? And I just thought, I need to go home. I need to go back to the Southwest. I need to get out of this town. I need to get as far away as I can from these people. So I moved home to my mum's house like a few months before I turned 30. Not what I ever expected for my life. I thought, when I was 18, I thought by the time I was 28, I'd have kids and a career and a husband and a dog, and a house, and I'd own a house and whatever. So I moved home to mum's house, and I couldn't work for like 3 months. I was absolutely broken. I was really poorly, mentally, physically, rock bottom. That is my rock bottom.
Right.
So I think if anyone's ever reached rock bottom, you know how you can't even imagine how you might get out of that place. And I really had no idea. So honestly, going home to my mum's it saved me, to be honest. And from kind of being at home and looking at what I wanted to do, I thought, I could do a bit of freelance. I could start my own business because I've got, this is a good opportunity. I started to find my drive again and thought, fuck it, let's give it a go. So I started with an artist and got them some nice national coverage in the Telegraph and thought, I can do this.
Yeah.
And then from her kind of front room office, I built JDH, which is JDH Communications, which is still alive today, 3 years down the line. And now we work with parts of the NHS and massive collaborations like theatre, again, so arts and culture, marketing and PR. And then kind of halfway through that year, I thought, I'm so lonely. I'm so lonely sat here on my own. And I think actually a lot of people now have started to realise how lonely it is to work from home on your own. Or even if you've got a family surrounding you, if you're used to working in a team, or if you're used to working even in a cafe, if you're sat at home, you're like, you can go for days without talking to someone. So I was like, okay, I kind of want a space, but I want a space that means more than just an office. I want it to kind of define the new way of working that I think is possible for everybody. Flexible, safe, and inspiring. And actually, I'd been to so many networking events where I was faced with, the majority of networking events I was going to, I was faced with an outdated kind of, I call it the landscape, because you literally look out into these events and see older white men in suits looking at you like, in a way that I can't describe, but you just know that they're going to say something that is going to make you feel like shit. Often it would be like, oh, what company are you from? So I'd tell them and they'd be like, oh, right, you... He'd ask me if I was the assistant or account exec. And so when I told them
Something
I was the owner...
other than the big bad boss.
Yeah,
right.
It's never that. It's changed a lot now, I feel like. I think probably that's a lot to do with me, but I kept encountering it and thought this needs to change. And for my colleagues that are black or women of colour, geez, that's a whole other ball game. And I had no idea that it was like that, because obviously I was brand new to the world of business. I knew music was like that because it is, and it needs to change. But I just assumed that was just music. But so then I thought, okay, what do we do? I need to make a space and a community where people feel like they can take ownership of their own career and have autonomy over what they want to do, and for it not to have a 9-to-5 attached to it, and for them not to feel like they can't say, because I still get it now, women at Wild, so I started Wild Coworking. It was a concept long before it opened, but after I moved to Frome, I spoke to the town council and they had a space. It wasn't that quite strict quite that straightforward. It took a lot longer than that. But we opened in Frome, and even now our members, a lot of them are like, oh, I'm just a freelancer, or, you know, and it's fine if you want to call yourself a freelancer, but if you want to call yourself a CEO, call yourself a fucking CEO, call yourself a director, take up the space, because if you don't, someone will just try and make you feel smaller. And that's how we're changing the landscape. One of the ways.
And a co-working space it's like a communal space.
It's a hot desking space.
So what is it? So run me through, say I'm an alien, run me through a hot desking space.
So if you turned up at Wild, you'd see me. And now you'd only see 4 desks because of COVID. But you turn up and make a cup of tea maybe if you wanted. Find somewhere to sit there for the day or part of the day, do your work surrounded by other people doing their own work, and go home. It's in place of that office environment that so many of us freelancers really miss. I can't describe it, but it's some kind of magic that happens when you're sat next to someone else also working on something. It turns your productivity up by like 60%. It is mad. But it works.
Is that competition?
No.
Or it's just because you could be working on 2 completely separate things,
and you
right?
often are, yeah.
But it's the so I subscribe massively to the idea of surrounding yourself with successful people, or people that are going to make you want to push yourself. They don't necessarily all have to be millionaires. That's not what I'm saying. You know,
well, it's not a success to some people.
You don't have, exactly. But people that are making moves in the directions they want to make moves in, and you can get caught in that slipstream and feed off of that energy.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, a little bit of that. But honestly, it's just company at the end of the day. Like we have the conversations that are helpful and inspiring, and being around women who are also working on their empires, or working hard, or juggling family and building businesses, multiple at one time, as well as dogs. And it does make you feel...
As well as dogs.
Yeah, like we have dogs at Wild all the time, which is what made me think of it.
Yeah.
But like they're doing everything. And by the way, I feel like I never need to address this with you, but I know that a lot of people will be like, why only women? Because that's what I always get.
Yeah.
Isn't it sexist? No, just because we're empowering women doesn't mean we're disempowering men.
Yeah.
We love men. I love men. I work with a lot of men. But actually, in order to restore the balance, it's not even restoring the balance because there's never been a balance, but to kind of change things, we need to treat oppressed groups differently and not like how the oppressor treats us, you know? Anyway, it is about being surrounded by amazing women, because our members are amazing.
Yeah.
But it's as simple as sitting next to somebody else who's also got their laptop open, who is also trying to concentrate. And you think, like, when you're at home, you maybe work for half an hour and think, oh, I'll just do the washing, or I'll just get up and have a look at something else, or I'll scroll. And if someone else is tapping away, you're like, oh, I'll just get it done. It's like magic. It really is so good.
And do you have moments of collaboration, sort of unofficial collaboration, where someone might say, girls, I need a word for energized that isn't what?
Diet Coke break.
That's not where I was going.
That's what it sounded like. No, there was a moment actually when I end of. So we turned 1 in March 2020, literally 4 days before lockdown happened. And a few months before that, there was a moment where I was sat in Wild and it was full of people, and there were new people there. There were founding members there. There were people having meetings. And then there was like spontaneous collaboration happening. And I was like, fuck, I fucking done it. Like, this is it. This is what I was aiming for. Like, everyone is here for the same reason, because they want to feel less alone. They want to find like-minded people, and they just want to get shit done.
Yeah.
Like that's all. That's what. And in a space where there's no distractions, there's like the radio's on, but it's like being like working in a cafe as a freelancer, but knowing that you're wanted there.
Yeah.
Tea and coffee's free, snacks are free,
Uh-huh.
and other people are also there for the same reason.
Yeah.
It's
And I guess you have a
magic.
support network as well there as well, because a friendship and a camaraderie will come out of this as well.
Yeah.
And life happens.
Yeah.
Whether you're a quote unquote professional or not, life happens. And I guess there are times when, you know, you're all agony ants or you're all like helping each other out with projects, and I guess you're in a room surrounded by people from all different disciplines who are at varying stages of experience, and you can sort of level each other up in your weak spots, which I think is amazing.
That is what happens. And we've got a WhatsApp group, so during COVID lockdown, like we saved each other, and I ran virtual cuppers, which is just basically opening Zoom up to people that want to come and have a chat. We're about to launch virtual co-working, which is really exciting. They're like group accountability sessions. So essentially what you get in person, but you're able to do it wherever you are. So if people are isolating, they can still co-work with us. So, and I think that's really going to change the game. And so that's exciting.
How does that look? They just basically have Zoom on, like having the radio on.
Yeah.
Or
so what we're going to do, essentially that Zoom in the background, but we'll start the call. I'm going to do it for 3 days a week and a couple of hours a day. We'll start the call and just say hello, and then I'm going to have like a Google spreadsheet up, and people will put in their name and what they're working on for the first task. We'll all go away for 25 minutes, work on that task, come back for 5-10 minutes, chat about that and see how it's going, then go away, and so on and so forth until 2 hours is up. And then so we want to, like, for example, I would use it and say, right, I want to get these 3 things done in the next 2 hours, and you are helping me stay accountable for it because you're also here doing it.
Right. So you're policing each other.
In a way. You're helping keep each other accountable. And so actually a member, Hannah, inspired me with that. She said that she's done it somewhere else and it works really well. So I'm really excited about that. That's launching this week. I mean, there's other restrictions coming in at the moment, so we're unsure about what's going to happen.
So it's a watch this space kind of
is
thing.
a bit. But the virtual co-working will happen anyway. Yeah.
So the point of this recording, we've just had what's the date today? What's the date today? Anyway, so the point of this recording, we've got some new lockdown measures coming in, which are slightly ambiguous at the moment, let's say. So we need to see how that pans out.
Yeah.
But give me an example of a really good success story from Wild. I know that they're all pretty impressive.
Well, we've got so many different members. We've got people that came to Wild still working at their job with a dream that they wanted to create, and now I'm seeing them selling their products, and that's under a year. Like that's in like 6 months, and that's happening across the board with members that are just part of Wild. Then I've worked with about 6 businesses, 6 women who have had Manifestation Monday. So I run accountability calls, and it's a tiny bit like coaching, but I'm not a coach, so I don't call it coaching. But
what's an accountability call?
So I will plan, kind of help develop a business alongside one of our members. And every other week I'll call them and we'll run through the points that the steps that they're taking in order to grow this business. Okay. So I'm keeping them accountable for their own goals that they've set themselves.
I see, right.
So sometimes I think like I've had to remind some of the members that I'm not there to like check up on them. Or it's not my business, it's theirs. I'm just there as a reminder, a person that's reminding them of what they've set themselves. And we've had, I mean, I have done. I mean, I help them keep accountable. I'm not taking credit, but this is they're massive successes. Women that have come and started at become a member, started the Manifestation Mondays with an idea, and they kind of actually. I'm not going to name names, but there's one member who has been doing it for probably about 9 months. I think it may be even longer than that, maybe even almost a year now. And she's just stopped them actually because she's got to where she wanted to be. She started and came to me and said, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said to her, what is your vision? Like, what is it that you see when you think this is what I might want my future to be like? You know, we've all got that vision of like, this is what I want, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't, but she did. And she thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to have that. She's a single mum and didn't even know what this role was that she wanted to create for herself, or what the business was or service that she wanted to offer. And was just like, oh, I shouldn't charge this, and was working for free for a lot of people because the kind of self-worth side of things wasn't there. And then in the last kind of month or so, she has got exactly what she wanted. She's got autonomy and control over her own life. She's earning a decent amount of money, launched her own business, built a website, employed people. Like it's
Wow.
major. So like that, there's a few of those, and I see those as a success, not mine, but their successes.
Yeah.
But without Wild, I really don't think like it would have happened, but I don't think that it would have happened necessarily as quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is really important, is that actually post-COVID especially now, that's where the magic, that's like the sweet spot where women can join together and you know, essentially grow the economy, like recover the economy again. But it's mainly change their own lives. And that's massive, especially when, you know, when you're employed, you can't have flexible working. Well, that might change now, but it's unlikely. You're not offered flexible working or, you know, working from home, even if you're a single mum with 2 kids and you've got to somehow get them from school when you're meant to be working till 5 o'clock. It's mad, but things are changing.
Is that, do you think there's going to be a sea change?
I think that it's been people have been trying to make that happen for a long time.
Right.
I worry that there's a lot of things happening at the moment that seem to be taking us back in time. And when stuff like shit hits the fan, people try and take control again. And I really think that we're in a time of divide and conquer at the moment as well. And often the people that lose out are women, mothers at home with kids. And we've seen that. There's been a 60% rise in women taking over the domestic chores in the household, which is bizarre, but it feels like that's part of the control. I sound like someone wearing a tinfoil hat now. But there's a lot of change at the moment, and I think there's a lot of good change, but I also think that there's a lot of fear of that good change happening.
Do you feel like you have to sort of bolster your focus, keep your eye on the prize kind of thing?
Yeah, it's hard to do that when you, as a business owner at the moment, have no idea what's happening. Like the announcements today have really thrown me, and I've had to give myself like 24 hours to digest it, plan it. But that could change tomorrow again. Right. So I'm an aggressive planner as well. So I normally know in my head what's going to happen. Yeah. In the next 3, 6 months to a year, then 5 years, I know where I want to be. Right. That's
just what happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've planned 5 years.
Really?
I definitely have a picture of what.
Do you? What does that look like?
I would really love to be earning my main chunk of, you know, my monthly wage, let's say, from something that didn't feel like work necessarily. something that was a bit more stimulating. This would be nice.
Yeah.
So a bit more stimulating, a bit more creative.
Yeah.
I don't hate the job I have, but I definitely have always felt like...
Are you just saying that because you think other people will listen to it and then you won't get fired?
No, I won't get fired. Protect the job. Protect the job. No, I just feel, like I could do something. I always felt like I could do something a bit more fulfilling.
Yeah.
I feel like I've done quite a lot of the stuff that I dreamt of doing.
Yeah.
But then a lot of dreams you have, when you actually start making them happen, the goalposts change.
Yeah.
Because you get a real idea
Yeah.
of it, and things, and I think it's okay to be dynamic and flexible and course correct along the way. You know, not everyone says, I'm going to do this, and then the path to that is straightforward. Or, you know, you have to take the different routes. You have to go the easiest routes. Sometimes you got to go harder routes if you know there's going to be experience in it. And then the end result, you might actually basically get what you set out for. But I don't think it's necessarily always what you set out for. So I think I've achieved a lot of what I wanted to do. It's just that things like real life happens and reality happens, and these things shift and they change in the way that they are completed, or the reality of what that dream actually is slightly different to how it is in your head when you conceive it.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. It's part of life. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Ebbs and flows. So tell me about these, because this is something I always meant to ask you about, and I don't think I actually did. The dental kits that you... Because you don't just do Wild and JDH, sorry.
GDH is my brother. So Habox, I'm not so involved with that anymore, but and that is absolutely nailing it. The girls are absolutely destroying it. They're doing so well. I helped launch My Habox, which is an oral health subscription box for children. Because Katie and Justina, the founders, wanted to change, basically wanted to stop pulling teeth out of children because of decay. And so they created a subscription box that is designed to help form healthy habits within children. And it's been a journey. But it's kind of one of those that I really like that start of, it's stressful. I don't know why I like it so much, but I like the start of a business and like being the consultant on the kind of PR and marketing side of things. And the business strategy as well now. And that's kind of how I worked with them. And I'm, I suppose, officially I was their, not so much anymore, but their chief marketing officer. And but they're smashing it. I've really got not much to do with them anymore. But they're my best pals in the world. So big shout out to them. Two women in business, black-owned business as well. Absolutely nailing it.
What's your biggest weakness in the business world, do you think?
It used to be money.
Right.
And I think actually this seems to be quite prevalent across, especially women in business, because I think it's not even to do with lack of knowledge, it's confidence. What I see quite often is that when men talk about money, it's like throwing their dicks around. Like they're just like, this much, I need this much money for my startup. I need £500,000. And they don't even think about it.
There's ego attached to it, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an ego, but I think it's also like there's a kind of given that they'll get it from somewhere.
Right.
Whereas with women, quite a lot of the time, not always, we kind of doubt whether we're worth that, because you have to think about how women are brought up to be told they're slower than men, they're not meant to be in the same category, they're weaker than men, we're not meant to be like equals to them at any point. We're always put in different teams. Like there's a constant kind of oppression. And so when it comes to jobs, they say that if a man sees that he's qualified for 25% of it, he'll go for it. Whereas if a woman sees that she's only 75% qualified for a job, she won't go for it because it's not 100%. So that kind of sums it up, to be honest. I can't remember what we were talking about.
Money, weakness.
Yeah, that was my weakness. Not so much anymore. Because
asking for it.
Asking for it, understanding it,
Right.
having confidence talking about it, telling people how much my day rate is.
Yeah.
It used to be like, but I mean, we'll work something out though. And it's like, no, that's how much you're paying me. That's how much I'm worth. I'm probably worth more than that. And so you're going to pay it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, again, with Manifestation Mondays, I've like worked with women who have been like, but it's like, they're only a little business. So, you know, I'll only charge them £15 an hour. And I'm like, are you going to end up paying to do that job? Don't do it. Find another.
Yeah. So I guess what happens is you then help that business out at £15 an hour. That business then gets to a position with your help where it can afford to pay you what you actually are worth. And then you're in a strange position where, you know, you might feel a bit awkward then asking for more money.
What do you mean?
So if you start doing it at a lower rate,
Yeah.
and then you help grow a business to a position where, you know, you feel actually they can pay the proper rate now.
Yeah.
You've then created a culture within your relationship with them where they're actually paying you less for way more.
Yeah.
And then you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot down the line, aren't you? Because they'll probably think, oh, we can go somewhere else and get the same thing cheaper.
Yeah. I think that...
or have I got that all wrong?
No, that definitely happens. It shouldn't necessarily happen. You know, I've worked for free when I definitely shouldn't have done.
But artists do that. They do, you know, that for exposure thing.
That's nonsense. That's created by people that don't want to pay for good work.
Yeah.
I really think that you pay for what you're getting. I think it's the whole money thing, especially in business. Like when I'm going for investment or applying for grants or whatever, I would always find myself going under what they've said, thinking I'll definitely get it if I go under. And actually, what I need to be doing is going over and then negotiating to the point where I actually am happy with the amount. So it's about mindset change, and and that is that's a whole life of unlearning how to think about money.
Okay.
We've reached an hour. See, I told you I'd say it.
You don't miss a damn thing.
I don't.
We have reached an hour.
Yeah.
So let's close on. I want to know what your the most creative, fun, memorable PR campaign you've worked on has been. I think that's quite cool. It's a cool job, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose so. It's really hard me talking about PR now because I've decided that I don't want to do it anymore.
Right. Okay.
But it's quite a major thing because I'm kind of like, a lot of people will come to me for PR.
Me included.
Yes. And I will continue to be a PR consultant, so, you know, advising people, but not doing the actual media relations.
No.
It's not for me anymore. The most creative, most fun, it was for... oh my God. Wait, hang on.
The video game you were telling me about.
Oh, that's also cool. I forgot about that. Full Steam Ahead, I made a video game with Aardman for SS Great Britain, and it won 3 awards. That was fun. That was really great. That was less PR. That was more kind of content stuff.
Yeah.
See No Evil was one of my favourite things. So See No Evil was Europe's largest urban art gallery. So it was on Nelson Street in Bristol. It was when I worked for an agency. And essentially, See No Evil brought together hundreds of artists from all over Europe. And they came and painted Nelson Street in the centre of Bristol. And I remember we I did a media call at like midnight the night before it was meant to open, because the artists were painting by like floodlights in the middle of the night. Incredible scenes. And we got loads of national photographers down, TV, like Good Morning Britain, all of that. It was so much fun. But it was mainly because I am a creative person anyway. I paint myself. And the people involved were amazing. I felt so proud of that campaign. And it reached worldwide press, and that's what you want.
It's the gold standard.
It kind of is, yeah. Nailed it. And it was the same for Upfest as well. I did the PR for them for a while, a good few years when I was at the agency, and that was great fun.
What's Upfest?
Another graffiti festival.
Right.
So those, and I guess Swallows and Amazons, or Romeo and her Juliet and her Romeo at Bristol Old Vic, because of the national press that those attracted, because of the director Tom Morris, who's the director of Warhorse. And
I haven't seen Warhorse yet. I've been meaning to.
It's great. You'll cry. You'll definitely cry.
Right.
I know you. You'll cry. It's great. Yeah, you'll blub.
I did message you once I've cried at a film.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
No.
It's weird.
It's nice. It's sweet.
Well, no, it's just odd that it's always you.
I think you're quite happy being vulnerable. Actually, I wanted to talk about vulnerability, but we're at an hour already.
Because I needed you to explain that to me
yeah,
once,
that's why
I
wanted to talk about it.
And then the penny dropped and it was like, oh, hello.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people, especially men, think that vulnerability is a weakness, that it means that they're this like vulnerable, like man that needs help, which is also fine.
Yeah.
But that you're seeing it as a bad thing.
Yeah.
Whereas vulnerability means actually just allowing yourself to be on the surface.
Yeah.
I think.
Because I was like,
I'm not
vulnerability is it's weakness. I was coming out all like Spock and logical. It's weakness. And you're like, no, it's, and I was like, oh, it takes strength to be vulnerable and know it and ride with it and allow it.
Yeah.
And that is what we need to encourage in men in general, I think.
Yeah.
People in general, but I think specifically men, we need to remember that, you know, it's okay to feel a little weak and helpless sometimes. Thankfully, I don't think I've really ever felt that hundreds of times or a lot of times in my life, but or even felt it 100%. But definitely, you know, if I'm feeling something, I try to remind myself, don't bury it. You know what I mean? Like, it's better just out.
Yeah.
And just, and usually people are way better about these things than you imagine them to be in your head.
Yeah. And that's where the vulnerability comes in, is that actually it allows other people to see you as a human.
Yeah.
And then makes them feel more comfortable and they can trust you more. And it really improves human connection. Because if, you know, like we're talking now openly, and that gives you a connection. If I was like, no, not going to talk shit about anything, you'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
Hard nut.
And you just sort of then think, all right, well, I'll let you get on with it then.
Exactly. And then no one comes in.
Yeah.
And but it's really hard to learn.
Yeah.
And it's also really hard being a man. I think that's like we need to talk more about that.
Yeah.
But maybe not tonight.
I mean, I've got time tonight,
No.
I don't think. But so what's next for Jess?
Oh, do you know what? I think, like, we're talking about the success thing.
Yeah.
I swing between, like, last week I was like, I'm going to retire by the time I'm 45. So bring it on, let's go. Got to work my ass off. But actually it's about working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And I'd still like that. But then it makes me think, why am I aiming for 45 to retire when actually I could have a kind of lifestyle that gives me what I'm chasing at 45? Yeah. And like, actually, what is success to me? Success to me is feeling secure, happy, free, definitely free and wild, a bit wild. You know, I really am on brand. Like, I like to be able to escape and break rules and surprise people. That's what I like to do, as you know, when people expect something from me and actually I do the total opposite.
Yeah.
And
You're a fan of shutting people down a bit like that, aren't you?
I've done it a few times. But normally because I can spot people a mile off now that are ready to fight me.
Yeah.
Because I am talking about empowering women. That's often, so I've got my patter down now.
And they want to clip your wings as well.
They're desperate to.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite often people that are so desperate to understand it, but don't. So then we'll be like, they'll just shut me down.
Right. Instead of investing some time in you.
Yeah.
And actually getting to know you.
Yeah. It's easier to disagree, isn't it, than to listen.
Well, we fear what we don't understand.
Yes. Apparently.
I
don't ever feel like that though, do you?
I don't feel like you're a person that's, incomprehensible.
No.
You know? I feel like you're very sort of, well, I don't know. I don't know how anyone could be intimidated by you, really, in that regard.
No, I don't either. That's why it always
I don't know you in a
annoys
business
me.
sense. Not like I haven't seen you like work in the room in that regard.
But that's the point. That's what I mean. I think it's because I'm not what people expect a business person to be like.
Right.
And I never will be, because otherwise I will be playing into the system that I'm trying to change. I'm not going to be someone that people expect.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Giant Pod. My guest was Jess Hellens, the force of nature. Please check out all the things she's involved with in the show notes descriptions. You can also leave a review, subscribe, and like this if you feel like it. Please follow my antics on Instagram at Andy_S1S. This was produced by the magnificent Harry Williams. Please check us out next week on The Giant Pod with me, Andy Wrintmore. See you then.